My name is Kate Callahan. I am 29 years old, and I have been married to my husband Ethan for 3 years. Last Saturday, we were hosting a birthday party for our daughter Lily. Her very first birthday surrounded by family, neighbors, and close friends. When my mother-in-law stood up in the middle of our living room and announced to every single person in the room that I had been cheating on her son, she was holding printed pages in her hand. She said she had proof. She said I had been living a double life since before Ethan and I were even engaged. Within seconds, the room went completely quiet. Heads turned, eyes shifted, and I watched the people I had cooked for, laughed with, and welcomed into my home slowly look at me like I was a stranger. Like I was someone dangerous. But I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I didn't even raise my voice. I smiled. My mother-in-law stared at me. She had not expected that. Not even a little. And that's because she had absolutely no idea what I had already prepared sitting quietly in a folder on the laptop that was open on our dining table, right beside the pink birthday cake with a single white candle on top. But before I tell you what happened next, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to Heartway Stories, and drop a comment telling me what state or country you're watching from. Now let me take you back to the beginning, because this story didn't start at that party. It started 3 weeks earlier, on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday morning, when I got a notification on my phone that changed everything. Our house had been full of noise and color all morning. Ethan had spent the weekend blowing up pink balloons and hanging a banner across the front porch that said Lily's Big One in silver letters. My mother and Ethan's aunt had arrived early to help with food, and by noon our kitchen smelled like garlic bread and something sweet Ethan's aunt had been stirring on the stove for an hour. Lily was in her high chair near the window, slapping her tray with both hands and laughing at nothing in particular the way 1-year-olds do, like the world is just endlessly funny if you look at it right. From the outside, everything looked exactly the way it was supposed to look. A happy home, a young family, a first birthday that would fill a photo album. But I had been carrying something quietly for weeks, something I hadn't told Ethan yet, not because I was hiding it from him, but because I needed to be absolutely certain before I said a single word. 3 weeks earlier, on that Tuesday morning, I had been getting ready for work when my phone buzzed with a security alert from my personal email account. It said someone had signed into my account from an unrecognized device. I almost dismissed it. Those alerts come through occasionally, and usually it's just me logging in from a different browser or Ethan checking something on my behalf. But something made me stop. Something about the timing felt off. I opened the alert and looked at the details. The login had happened at 2:17 in the morning, from a device I didn't recognize, in a city I had never visited. My stomach dropped. I immediately changed my password, secured the account, and then I did something I wouldn't normally think to do. I called my coworker's husband, a man named Greg, who does cybersecurity work for a living, and asked if he could help me figure out where the login had come from. Greg took 2 days. When he called me back, his voice was careful. He said he had traced the device. He said the IP address was registered to a residential address in our own town. He gave me the address. I recognized it immediately. It was my mother-in-law's house. I sat in my car in the work parking lot for a long time after that call. I kept thinking I had misheard him. I kept thinking there had to be some kind of mistake. My mother-in-law, Donna, had never been easy. From the day Ethan brought me home to meet his family 4 years ago, she had looked at me with a particular kind of politeness that was really just disapproval with better manners. She would say things like, "Ethan always had such high standards," or "It must be so hard managing everything on your salary, Kate," with a smile that never reached her eyes. She questioned how I cooked. She rearranged things in my kitchen when she visited without asking. She once told Ethan, while I was standing in the next room, that she worried he had settled. But I had never imagined she would go this far. After I got home that evening, I waited until Lily was asleep and Ethan was in the shower. Then I opened my email account and checked the sent folder carefully, and I found them. 4 emails sent from my account between midnight and 3 in the morning over the past 2 weeks. Sent to a name I recognized, a man named David, an old colleague from a job I had left 2 years ago. The emails were written to sound warm. Personal. Too personal. They weren't explicit, but they were written in a way that, to someone reading them out of context, would look like something more than friendship. I had never written a single one of those emails. I screenshot everything. I saved the login records Greg had sent me. And then I quietly closed my laptop and went to bed because I needed to think carefully about what to do next. In the weeks before the party, I watched Donna more closely than I ever had. She didn't know I knew. She came over twice to help decorate for Lily's birthday, and both times she was warmer toward me than she had been in years. She complimented the balloons. She told me the decorations looked beautiful. She offered to pick up extra napkins from the store. And each time, I smiled and said thank you, because I had learned something important in those few weeks. The best thing I could do was let her feel comfortable. Let her believe everything was going exactly the way she had planned. I also reached out to our bank. Ethan and I had a joint savings account that Donna had helped us set up 2 years earlier, shortly after Lily was born, when Ethan's grandfather passed and left us a modest inheritance. Donna had been there at the bank that day as a kind of family support, and somehow she had ended up knowing our account details, our login, our PIN, because Ethan had trusted her completely and had shown her how to access it in case of emergency. I had always felt uncomfortable about that, but I hadn't said anything because Ethan loved his mother, and I didn't want to seem like I was building walls. What I found in those bank records made my chest go tight. 17 transfers over 14 months. Small enough not to trigger an automatic alert. Consistent enough to add up. Every single one moved from our joint savings into an account I didn't recognize. When I traced the account number with the help of our bank manager, it came back to a secondary account registered in Donna's name. $43,000. Gone. I printed everything, the login records from Greg, the fake emails from my sent folder with timestamps, the bank statements with every transfer highlighted. I organized it into a folder on my laptop, and I saved a backup on a USB drive. Then I put the USB drive in my coat pocket, set the laptop on the dining table where I always kept it during family gatherings, and I waited for the party. By 2 o'clock on Saturday, the house was full. Ethan's aunt and her husband were near the kitchen. My parents were sitting with a few of our neighbors in the living room. Ethan's coworker had come with his wife and their toddler, who was chasing our dog around the coffee table. Lily was in her birthday dress, pale pink with tiny white flowers, sitting on a blanket in the middle of the room, completely unbothered by all the noise and attention. Ethan was beside me, his arm around my shoulder, talking to someone about the local sports team. Every few minutes, he would look down at Lily and his whole face would soften in that way that still surprised me even after 3 years of marriage. I had married a good man. That much I had always known. Donna arrived last, which was unusual. She was always early. She came in carrying a wrapped gift and a dish covered in foil, and she kissed Lily on the top of her head and smiled at everyone and said she was sorry she was late. Then she looked at me. Not a long look. Just a half second. But in that half second, I saw something in her eyes that I recognized from my mother-in-law's face on the worst days, that quiet, loaded confidence of someone who has already decided how a situation is going to end. I smiled at her and told her I was glad she made it. She smiled back and said, of course. She wouldn't miss her granddaughter's birthday for anything. And then she went to set her dish down in the kitchen, and I noticed her hand trembling slightly on the handle of the foil cover. We sang to Lily. We cut the cake. My mother took approximately 40 photographs in the span of 60 seconds. Lily put her entire fist into the slice on her tray and looked deeply satisfied with herself, and everyone laughed. It was exactly the kind of moment I had imagined when Ethan and I found out we were pregnant. Warm and loud and full of people who mattered. And then Donna stood up. She didn't shout. She didn't make a scene. She simply stood, smoothed the front of her blouse, and said in a voice that carried across the entire room, "Before we go any further with the celebration, I think there's something Ethan needs to know." The laughter faded. Conversation stopped. Ethan lowered his fork and turned toward his mother with a confused frown. I felt my hands go still in my lap. Donna looked at Ethan directly. She said she was sorry, that she had hoped this wouldn't be necessary, but that she loved him too much to stay quiet. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small stack of printed pages. She said she had found something that Ethan deserved to see. Then she turned toward me. "Your wife," she said quietly, "has been messaging another man. For months. The room reacted immediately. Whispers spread like something catching fire. Ethan's aunt put down her cup. My mother's expression went rigid. Ethan turned toward me slowly, and his face was doing something complicated that I didn't have the words for: confusion and hurt and disbelief all at the same time. Donna stepped forward and placed the printed pages on the coffee table where everyone could see the emails. My email address at the top, David's name. The language that had been crafted to look intimate and private and wrong. Several guests leaned forward. Someone whispered, "Oh my goodness." Ethan picked up one of the pages and stared at it. "Ethan," he said softly. Not to me, just the word by itself, like a door closing. I looked at Donna. Her expression was controlled and careful, but underneath it I could see what she was actually feeling: relief. The relief of someone who has been waiting a long time to fire a gun and has finally pulled the trigger. She believed this was over. She believed that in the next few minutes, Ethan would look at those pages and look at me, and the marriage would begin to crack. And before anyone started asking questions about bank accounts or missing money, the entire story would already be about me. She glanced at me, clearly expecting tears, or anger, or denial tumbling out all at once. Instead, I smiled at her. Donna's expression faltered for just a moment. "What is wrong with you?" she said, sharp and quiet. "This isn't funny." I agreed. I told her it wasn't funny at all. Then I looked around the room at my parents, at Ethan's aunt, at the neighbors and the friends who had all gone very still and were watching us the way people watch something they can't look away from. Then I looked at Ethan, who was still holding the printed page and staring at me with an expression I wanted to erase from his face as quickly as possible. I stood up slowly and walked to the dining table. My laptop was right where I had left it, open, screen on. I turned it to face the room and said, "I'd like to show everyone something." Donna frowned. "This isn't the time for—" "It won't take long," I said. The room stayed quiet. Ethan set the printed page down and watched me. Donna's chin lifted slightly, like she was steadying herself, but her eyes had changed. The certainty in them had shifted into something harder to read. I pulled up the first document. The security alert from my email provider, dated 3 weeks earlier, time-stamped at 2:17 in the morning, showing a login from an unrecognized device. I read the key line out loud. The IP address and the location it had been traced to. "That's an IP address," I said calmly. And the cybersecurity professional who traced it for me identified it as a residential address here in town. I paused. "Your address," I said, and I looked directly at Donna. Several people in the room looked at her. Donna shook her head immediately. "That's not possible. Someone must have used my Wi-Fi. Anyone could have." "That's possible," I said. And I meant it, because I always try to be fair. So, let me show you the next part. I opened the email folder. The 4 emails in my sent folder, each one time-stamped between midnight and 3 in the morning. Then I opened a second document, beside it my work keycard records, printed directly from my employer's building access system, showing that on each of those nights, my keycard had swiped in and out of the building on a normal schedule. I was at work during the day, home by 6, in bed by 10. I had never been awake at 2 in the morning. I hadn't written a single one of those emails. "Someone accessed my account from your home network," I said quietly, "and sent emails designed to look like I was having an affair." The room was completely silent now. Ethan was staring at his mother. Donna was shaking her head, but she wasn't speaking anymore. The color in her face had changed. "I don't," she started. "There's one more thing," I said. I heard someone near the back of the room pull in a slow breath. I opened the bank statements. 17 transfers. 14 months. Each one a clean, tidy amount moving out of the joint account. Ethan and I had set up for Lily's future, the inheritance money Ethan's grandfather had left specifically because he wanted it to grow for his great-grandchild. I had the account name the money had been transferred to highlighted in yellow on each page. I had the bank manager's signed statement confirming the account's registered owner. I didn't read it out loud. I turned the laptop screen so the room could see it clearly, and I let people read it for themselves. It took about 4 seconds. "That's Ethan's," aunt started. "That's Donna's account," my mother finished. Ethan didn't move. He stood very still in the middle of his daughter's birthday party, surrounded by pink balloons and the smell of garlic bread and the mess of frosting on the tray in front of Lily, and he stared at the screen. His jaw was tight. His hands were at his sides. "Mom," he said. Just that. Donna looked around the room. The expression on her face had changed completely now. The careful composure she had walked in with was gone. What replaced it was something raw, something desperate. She looked at Ethan's aunt. She looked at the neighbors. She looked for someone to meet her eyes and find her familiar again. Nobody did. "You don't understand," she said. Her voice had lost its steadiness. "Ethan, you have to listen to me. I did this for you. I did all of this for you." Ethan's voice was very quiet when he answered. "You stole from Lily. I was protecting you." Donna's voice cracked. She was going to turn you against your own family. She was already controlling the finances, already. "You forged emails from my wife's account." Ethan's voice hadn't gotten louder, but the quality of it had changed into something I had never heard from him before. "You stole money my grandfather left for our daughter. And then you stood in our home at our daughter's birthday party." He stopped, pressed his lips together, looked at the floor for a moment, then looked back at his mother. "How long?" Donna didn't answer. "How long has the money been missing?" She wrapped her arms around herself. "It was only supposed to be temporary. I was going to put it back." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, he looked older somehow. $43,000 is not temporary, Mom." Donna turned toward me, and for the first time I saw something in her face that wasn't calculation or control. It was fear. "I know how this looks," she said. "But you have to understand. I was trying to protect my son from a woman who—" "From a woman who what?" I asked. I kept my voice even. I wasn't angry, not the way I had expected to be. I was just tired. "A woman who loves your son? A woman who has spent 3 years trying to be part of this family? You've always thought you were better than us." "I have never thought that," I said. "And I meant that too." The room was still. Someone near the window shifted their weight. Lily, completely undisturbed by all of it, had fallen asleep against the side of her high chair with one fist curled near her cheek, frosting still on her fingers. Ethan's aunt stood up quietly. She walked to Donna and put a hand gently on her arm. "Donna," she said, "you need to go." Donna looked at her sister-in-law. Then she looked at Ethan. Then she looked at me one last time. Whatever she was searching for in my face, she didn't find it. I wasn't triumphant. I wasn't cruel. I was just standing in my own home, in front of the people I loved, having told the truth, which is the only thing I had ever wanted to do. Slowly, Donna picked up her purse from the chair. She didn't take the dish she had brought. She didn't take the gift. She walked across the living room, with her arms crossed tight against herself, and when the front door closed behind her, the room felt like a window had finally been opened after a long time of being shut. No one spoke for a moment. Then Ethan walked across the room to where I was standing beside the dining table, and he pulled me into a hug that lasted a long time. He didn't say anything at first. I could feel him breathing slowly, like someone trying to steady themselves after something they hadn't seen coming. Then he said, very quietly against the side of my head, "I'm sorry I looked at you that way when she showed those pages." I told him I understood. I told him it had lasted about 30 seconds, which was all the time I was willing to give it. He laughed, and it was a short, exhausted laugh, but it was real. Ethan's aunt began quietly collecting cups from the coffee table. My mother moved to lift Lily carefully out of the high chair without waking her, and carried her toward the bedroom the way grandmothers do, with that particular steadiness that comes from having carried a lot of babies over a lot of years. Our neighbor from 2 houses down went to the kitchen and came back with a damp cloth and started cleaning frosting off the tray with the casual helpfulness of someone who has seen life get complicated and knows the most useful thing to do is deal with the small messes first. Someone refilled the drinks. Someone else cut a second round of cake. Conversations started again. Slowly and then all at once, the way it does when a room decides together to choose warmth over tension. Ethan sat beside me on the couch for the rest of the afternoon, and every once in a while he would find my hand and hold it, which he has always done when he doesn't have the words for something important. 2 days after the party, Ethan called his mother and told her she needed to speak with a lawyer. He said we were filing a police report. He said he didn't know yet what forgiveness looked like from here, but he knew it could not start until there was accountability. Donna's lawyer contacted our lawyer the following week. Within the month, she had agreed to repay the full amount in structured payments, and she was formally charged with financial fraud. The case is still ongoing as of today, but the money has begun coming back. I have thought a lot about why Donna did what she did. I don't think she was a simple person, and I don't think she was only motivated by money. I think she had spent years building a version of her son's life in her mind, one where she was at the center of it, where she was needed and irreplaceable, and when she realized that vision was slipping away, she panicked. She chose the worst possible response to that panic. But the panic itself, I understood, in a way. Loving someone and being afraid of losing them can make people do terrible things if they never learned a better way to hold on. That doesn't excuse what she did. It doesn't come close. But understanding why something happens is different from accepting it. And I have never been willing to accept being made small in my own life by someone else's fear. Lily woke up from her nap that afternoon in the best mood of her small life. She had no idea what had happened. She crawled across the living room rug looking for her toy duck with the cheerful single-mindedness that one-year-olds bring to everything that matters to them. My mother followed her at a slow crouch, ready to catch her if she tipped over. Ethan crouched down at the other end of the rug and held out his arms, and Lily changed direction immediately and crawled toward her father as fast as her little hands and knees could carry her. When she reached him, he scooped her up and held her against his chest, and she grabbed a fistful of his shirt and looked around the room with that wide, calm confidence of a child who has never once doubted she is exactly where she is supposed to be. I watched the two of them from the doorway, and I thought about the $43,000 that was coming back. I thought about the account Ethan's grandfather had set up because he wanted something to still be growing when Lily was old enough to need it. I thought about the fact that it would be there for her now, intact and waiting, because I had paid attention to a notification on a Tuesday morning instead of dismissing it. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply refuse to look away. Ethan looked up and caught me watching him, and he tilted his head in that way that means come here. And I crossed the room and sat beside him on the floor while Lily climbed between us, investigating both of our faces with her small hands, like she was making sure we were still the same people she had left when she fell asleep. We were exactly the same, just a little clearer on a few things. The banner was still hung across the front window. Lily's big one. The balloons had drifted to the corners of the room. There was frosting on the carpet near the high chair that someone had missed, and I would have to get the spray bottle for it later. But the house felt like ours again. Fully, completely ours. And that was enough.